see white lies dancing between the lines. She's an atheist. Carousels in her mind, spinning all in her eyes. She's an atheist.
Hello and welcome to the Digital Freethought Radio Hour on WOZO Radio 103.9 LPFM right here in Knoxville, Tennessee. Today is Sunday, January 10th, 2021. I'm Larry Rhodes, your Doubter 5, and as usual, we have our co-host Wombat on the phone with us. Hello, Wombat.
And that is so Raven.
Okay. Don't know what that means, but it's probably because I'm old. And our guests today are Boudreaux. Hello, welcome, Boudreaux, Dread Pirate Higgs, and George. Digital Freethought Radio Hour is a talk radio show about atheism, free thought, rational thought, humanism, and the sciences. And conversely, we'll also talk about religion, religious faith, gods, holy books, and superstition. And if you get the feeling that you're the only non-believer in Knoxville, well, you're just not. There are several atheist, free-thinking, and rationalist groups that exist right here in Knoxville, and we'll be telling you how you can connect with them right after the mid-show breaks. Also, did you know that there was a streaming atheist call-in video show broadcasting right here in Knoxville? Did you know that, Wombat?
I did, and I can't wait because Zach Morris hasn't aged a day, and I think Mario Lopez still looks great. So I'm really looking forward to seeing the cast of Saved by the Bell really get back together again. This is going to be a really amazing reboot.
Keep flipping those channels, you'll find it eventually. Actually, if you go to YouTube, that's where you'll find it. But we'll give you more details about that after the mid-show break. And if you'd like to interact with us during the show, it's 11 o'clock on Sunday morning. Go to Facebook and search for our Digital Freethought Radio Hour and use the messaging function to send us questions or comments. Wombat, what do you have for us today?
I wanted to talk about gaslighting today, which is sort of like the term of the year that I learned last year, but it's basically telling the same lie.
What relevance that would have for this week.
It's telling a lie over and over again until people believe it, or deceiving people with a repeated falsehood. And I think it plays a lot into what's going on today, especially last week, especially the last 4 years, you name it.
Right.
But before we get into it, how about we throw it up to our own Dread Pirate Higgs for our weekly invocation?
Brr. So, quab be me captain, I shall not want. He maketh me to float in salt water. He steereth me through glassy seas. He filleth my bowl. He steereth me through the straits of noodliness, for goodness sake. Aye, though I shall sail through the heaving of tempestuous waters, I will fear not sinking, for thou art with me. Thy mast and thy rudder, they comfort me. Thou preparest a feast before me in the presence of me mates. Thou quenchest my thirst with grog. My goblet runneth over. Truly, pasta and grog shall abide with me all the days of me life, and I shall dwell in the galley of our quab forever.
Amen. All right, so as a quick little warning for people who don't like it getting political, I think this is still a show that you should watch because this is things that affect you as well. There's things where it's like, I don't like politics really is just a euphemism for I don't like people that say things that I don't like. But this is something that really does affect everybody. Right. And I think it's worthwhile if you listen to it. Larry, would you mind going over what might have happened of interest this last week?
What could have happened?
Or just generally, just a recap
what
of
happened
news
in
events.
the news, maybe?
Yeah, I don't think anything really happened. You mind covering over some things?
Yeah, except an attempted overthrow of the government. That's all. Instigated by the sitting president, and it's just amazing. He's had this line that the last presidential election, was a fraud. He's absolutely no evidence. We have a court system that if you have evidence for that, you can take a case to court and prove your point. He has taken more than 50 cases, 62 cases to court, had no evidence to prove any kind of fraud. And in one particular instance, Rudy Giuliani, I can't say his last name, Giuliani.
Rudy Giuliani, he sells chocolate. We all know this.
Actually said,
Giuliani.
We're not attempting to prove fraud. We're attempting to prove malfeasance or something. Anyway, in direct contradiction to what Trump's been saying all along anyway. But anyway, the biggest thing was that Trump had a rally just before the electoral college votes were counted, or to be counted in Congress, and sent the crowd of several thousand people down the street to the Capitol to invade it and take it over, and in his words, to encourage our senators and discourage the others. But these people had bombs with them. They had guns with them.
They had zip ties for taking hostages.
They broke windows and doors to gain entrance. And one person was actually shot and killed trying to get into the pit where the senators and congressmen, well, the senators, I guess, were assembled to vote on the electoral college. Now, also in that chamber was the vice president, the president of the Senate, and the president per tempe. I can't remember how you pronounce it, but
basically the next four levels of who would be in charge if the president wasn't in there.
Of succession to the presidency were in the same chamber. If they gained entrance into that chamber, who knows what would have happened to our governmental structure at that point.
Essentially, the next four most powerful people in the world, all in one building, and a bunch of protesters / rioters /
he sends a mob
terrorists
down there, an armed mob, to that chamber.
Oh man, Boudreaux, how would you add to that, or what would be your take on this week's events? I want to get everyone's opinions before we go through it.
Yeah, well, first a big thank you to Ty for warning me, because I was up for a walk chatting with a buddy of mine on the phone for like an hour, and I missed the whole news drop of the whole thing.
Wow.
I was like, what just happened? So I was
kind of gaslighting me.
No. I think you were on the phone with Chad, weren't you? It was just another buddy moment. I'm just like, stop being friends, and
well, I love to just disconnect from I don't have Facebook on my phone anymore, and
Sure.
I use it on a browser, of course. But yeah, I was just completely disconnected from the
Media.
world. My wife was actually handing out food for God's Pantry, which is a bit ironic for our family, but just neither of us knew what was going on until Ty, you messaged us. So I had to kind of scramble to pick up what was going on. But yes, a little afraid. Was anyone else afraid?
I was scared. I was legitimately scared. And I didn't realize how scared I was until I started calling my friends and family being like, hey, you don't want to be, a person of color walking down the streets right now. Even in Kentucky, in Frankfurt, there was Trump protesters around your Capitol building ready to be even more violent. Like, I was looking at the news like, okay, so what's going on in Georgia? What's going on in Kansas? What's going on in Kentucky, Tennessee? Protesters at every Capitol building in those states getting more riled up. And I'm like, okay, if this is what's going on at DC with the best, in my head, the best security available, right? Secret Service, everything. What the hell's going on in Tennessee? What's going on in Georgia right now? This could be a nationwide thing. And I don't think the person who's in charge that incited this would be prone to calling a national emergency. So the best thing I can do is just call people that I care about and just say, hey, stay home if you can stay home, please. Sorry for stepping on your toes on that description, Boudreaux.
No. The other thing I'd add is it's my understanding too that the group that attacked the Capitol, they weren't like DC locals, like they were people from all over the country, which is actually a good sign in my mind, because it just means that they plucked the craziest of crazy from around the country, put them together, and that's what happened. So that makes me feel better that there aren't 70 million people in the country that are all,
That's a great point. If they were all just literally across the street, if that was just the DC chapter of, crazos, I'd be like, dang, dang. Okay, well, let me get my Black Lives Matter t-shirt.
And the other point that you were saying, in different cities, a lot of the stuff was going on. Downtown Knoxville didn't see much activity during that time, so that's good.
Though I want to say, and this is not shade on Knoxville, because Knoxville, in my opinion, is a bastion of like just progressive, forward-thinking identity. But one of the ladies that got maced in the face who did an interview. Oh, you're nodding your head.
Yeah.
She got
Oh, I
maced in the
saw
face.
it.
She's like, what's going on? I was like, I got maced in the face. Why did you get maced in the face? Because I was storming the Capitol building. It's a revolution. But how dare they do that to me? I'm like, put two and two together. If you were black, you would have been shot. You would have been dead right now. Come on, dude. All right. So
She never would have gotten into the Capitol if it had been that
yeah,
way.
she was from Knoxville. So yeah, it takes everyone. George, I'd love to get your opinion on this. I know you have a lot to say, maybe even bring in your neighbor, but what were you thinking? What were you thinking? What was going
Well,
on?
I'll tell you, I wasn't paying attention at the time. I was doing something else, and my buddy in Denmark got all upset about it and emailed me, and that's how I knew something was going on. So he was
emailed you.
paying rapt attention in Denmark. Now, my buddy in Denmark happens to be a retired newspaper reporter. So, we've talked about the discrepancy between what reporters see and how their stories wind up after the editors get done with them. And it's like, this thing is just too big to not survive what the editors could do to it. And the other thing is that, in a way, I'm really glad that this happened, because it is so outrageous. It's so over the top that it cannot be swept under the rug.
Right.
It will have positive consequences.
Positive
In the long haul, I think, in the long haul, I really think that it's going to be beneficial, because it's like the guy got so out of control that it is impossible to dispute the fact the man is insane.
Yeah.
Right. Absolutely.
You can't ignore it.
And
so I think
that's our
what's
president
going
you're
to
talking
come
about. How dare you? I was just playing. Sorry. Our president for the next week, less than a week. No, it's still a little bit more than a week.
Well, let me add this one thing to it, and then
Please.
let's move on to somebody else. That I think that's psychological analyses of this.
Oh, I lost your volume.
Are going to come. The hell has been going on? So it's going to be good.
Overall, positive
I'm done. Thank you.
consequences for really bad action or series of actions.
Exactly.
Dread, I'd love to get your feedback. You're not in the United States, but you are American, and I wanted to know, like, what was your opinion seeing something like this? If you did see it on the news, how was it conveyed in Canada?
I think Canadians let out a collective sigh of just sort of, oh my goodness, again. It was,
you're like 1965 and now come on.
Yeah. So no, I mean, it was just a head shaking moment to see it all taking place, and I think there were some people that kind of had a sense that this actually might be something that would happen. I don't know if that's the case, but I wasn't surprised. I could put it that way.
Good. That's a good phrase to put it, because a lot of people here, particularly people of color, were not surprised in the U.S. either. Though I want to say this. Here's my take. I wanted to do a whole sarcastic thing on, like, well, they were all patriots and all this stuff, but, like, I don't have the stomach for it, because really what I saw was, like, some of the most offensive things to every veteran that died, every veteran that got injured, every civil rights movement towards trying to get us to vote, like every step forward and every effort made towards equality and the betterment of this nation, and, like, progression towards what was originally just I want to say, like, a boat full of people looking for a better life, and all the craziness in between that's happened all the way up to now. Like, that's just such a spitting on this nation's history. And something I hear a lot is, like, that's not us, that's not America. Like, when you look at all these people invading into the Capitol building, and they're carrying the Confederate flag and they're screaming things that are absolutely obscene, due to the nature of just like whatever news bubble they're in, or socioeconomic position they were in at the time, racially charged things that they were saying. It reminded me that a lot of people have this overinflated impression, this idealized, romanticized version of what America is, because that is America. That is a facet of who we are as a country. We have those people, and we've had those people, and for a long period of time, those people were in charge. And the reason why they're upset now is because the power dynamic is slowly ebbing towards more egalitarian state, where people who are women and people who have darker skin color than khaki are having more political sway in what they need to say. Look at Georgia. Like, that is the demonstration of, women, black people, all real coming together and saying, like, none of this guy, please have better representation. We elected our first black senator. And that should have been the good news for that day. But for that to go from, hey, new black senator, youngest, like a young guy, like all the people in the Senate are really old, to be honest with you. Like, we finally have like a young senator, a millennial senator, a senator younger than me. That's the first time in my life that's ever happened. And have this capital rush be the real story of the day. It's kind of mind-boggling. And so my takeaway is like, one, I'm glad people get to see it for what it is. Yeah, I'm reminded of Childish Gambino's "This Is America" music video. I don't know if you've ever seen it. Probably not very popular among this cast. But Eric, I know you got me on this one.
Oh yeah, loved it.
It's just a guy saying "This is America," and it's just crazy, chaotic explosions, stuff going in the back. And you're listening to this music and you're like, what does this even mean? A lot of people are like, what does this even mean? But every black guy watching it is like, I know exactly what he's trying to say. I get what he's trying to say. And like, if you play This Is America video and just watch muted video of just the Capitol Rush, it's like, I can't tell these two music videos apart. They're like, one has a dancing black guy in it, the other one doesn't. And it's just like, that's the only way I can tell these two apart now. But I wanted to just say, like, I think I'm with George, because I think this is going to have good consequences. And I think that's something that we really need now more than what was, in my opinion, a very slow burn complicity towards towards what I found to be just the most offensive amount of anti-American sentiment, anti-American gatherings, anti-American, just appreciation for different people who helped to build this country, and just like scary rhetoric that everyone was just saying, well, he's our president, we have to deal with it. It's like, ooh, no, we have a say. We can probably stop this. And I'm glad it happened now during a transition period where it's like, okay, what's going to be Trump's legacy? Like, what's his final note? What's the thing that people are going to remember? And I think what we're going to remember is that he really did make America great again, because he left with the Democrats in charge of the House, the Senate, he lost the presidency, he got banned off Twitter.
So true.
Yeah. We got our first black senators. Like, we won Georgia. Well, like, the list goes on. It's just like, wow, you really did a good job.
Nobody.
Well, but don't forget though that he left us a lopsided Supreme Court
and the court system.
One thing I want to mention.
Nobody mentioned. I mean, nobody motivated the Democratic voters like Trump. I mean, nobody has got those kind of voting numbers.
Exactly.
But
and
Trump
no one
did.
moved as many moderate Republicans towards him as well. Like, Georgia still very much is not a liberal haven yet.
Right.
It was enough to move the needle, and that's like, wow, okay, great.
I want to mention that something I found interesting. I'm going off to the side here a little bit, but what we had in the case of Trump was a reaction against Obama. It was the backlash. And the same thing happened in New York City. We had a black mayor, David Dinkins, who we'll be forgetting about a lot because the guy who replaced him, Giuliani, like Trump, is a real blowhard. So it was New York, you may think of as a progressive place. Well, yes and no. It is and it isn't. And what happened there? The police did a number on Dinkins. What happened was that they went around in the middle of the night enforcing a blue law. The blue law was that you're not allowed to park a carriage on the street overnight. And they put tickets on every car that was on the street at night to embarrass Dinkins. And I'm just wondering if we've had something like that happened to Obama. But in any event, in both cases, there was this backlash against the black administrator. And I think we're done with it now.
Yeah. And once you go black, you go black and half Indian. It's great. I love it. Let's keep going. Larry, what do you got for us? We're at the bottom of the half hour.
Yeah, we should take a break
already.
now.
That's way too fast.
This is the Digital Freethought Radio Hour on WOZO Radio 103.9 LP FM right here in Knoxville, Tennessee. We'll be right back after this short break.
To the curious, the inquisitive, the seekers of knowledge, to the ones who just want to know about life, about the universe, about yourself. Not cute questions, big questions, ones that matter. To the rebels, the artists, the free thinkers, and the innovators who care less about labels and more about truth, who believe nonconformity is more than a bumper sticker, that knowledge is more than words on a page. You're young, you're old, you're powerful beyond measure, and the fuel of that power is not magic or mysticism, but knowledge. The things you see, the things you feel, the things you know to be true. Sure, some will doubt you. Let them. Dare to think for yourself, to look for yourself, to make up your own mind. Because in the eternal debate for answers, the one thing that's true is the power of logic.
Hello and welcome back to the Digital Freethought Radio Hour on WOZO Radio 103.9 LPFM right here in Knoxville, Tennessee. I'm Daughter 5 and today is Sunday, January 10th, 2021. Let's talk about the atheist and freethought groups that you can join right here in Knoxville, Tennessee. First, there's the ASK, Atheist Society of Knoxville. Founded in 2002, we're in our 18th year, 19th now, I guess, 2021. Wow. ASK has over 1,000 members, and we have a weekly Zoom meeting during COVID, and you can find us online at Facebook or at knoxvilleatheist.org. You can go directly to Meetup or Google and just search for Knoxville Atheist, and you'll find us. It's just that simple. By the way, if you don't live in Knoxville, you should still go to Meetup and do a search for an atheist group in your area. Don't find one? Start one. That's right. Another large free-thinking group here in Knoxville are the Rationalists of East Tennessee, RET. You can find them on Facebook or by going to rationalists.org. Earlier in the show, we said we'd talk about the Knoxville Atheist video show.
Start one.
Yeah, it was on TV for 10 years as the Freethought Forum Knoxville, and you can go to YouTube and find those archives. Now it's currently broadcasting under YouTube as Freethinkers United Coalition of Knoxville. So go to YouTube in either case and search for those words, you'll find it. Also, if you're interested in getting involved with the TV or the radio show, just come to an Ask Meetup, virtually, of course, or RET website and talk to us about it. You can be our next co-host or guest. Where do you want to pick up on that? With gaslighting, I assume?
Well, I thought we were talking about movies and how we all wish they can come back, and that a good way to recreate the movie experience.
Are you gaslighting this show?
No. The way we'll create movies is by getting a bunch of popcorn, and the best thing that you have with popcorn is salt and pepper. What a fan, what a fan, what a fan, what a mighty good fan.
What a mighty good fan.
Guys, we had some good comments yesterday, but I wanted to get we did have listener feedback, right? I do want to get right into the main topic of the show, though. So I will say I'll give the nicest comment that we got on last week's video, which was, if 2021 doesn't change, I will. And this is the nicest comment. It was by Arthur Franco. He says, I love this episode. You guys have one of the best podcasts out there. I eagerly await some more SE videos from you when it is safe to do so. And I said, thank you, Arthur. I'm eager to get back out too when it's safe. And I'm looking forward to talking to people about what they believe and how they believe it and how they came to those conclusions. We want to talk about gaslighting today. We gave some time for ourselves to vent about the terrorist attack, the insurrection event that happened early last week. I want to talk about gaslighting, which is essentially telling a lie over and over and over again, such that people tend to believe it. It's human nature to tend to grow accustomed to things or be desensitized to even falsehoods.
Especially if you want to believe it.
Absolutely. And if you tell someone a lie enough times and they don't have a good basis in critical thinking, they'll tend to believe it. And I think we saw that, just as recently as early this week, Tuesday, when we had on the 6th, the Electoral College came together and Trump's there in front of the Capitol building or just down the road saying, hey, here are all these things that I'm upset about, all these things that were not proven true in a court of law. But they're true because I love you guys, and we're going to fight, and we're going to make sure those senators, do what we want them to do. You got to show strength. I'll be there with you. Go there now. Go to the Capitol building, walk down there, and show them what's up. Bye. And he jetted out. That's the worst Trump impression of 2021, by the way. Larry, what do you got? Sorry.
Well, I was just going to say that one of the lies that he told during that was that he's sending them down there because Pence didn't do what he wanted him to do.
Right.
Pence was supposed to stop the electoral process, electoral college count by some means, but he did not have the power. He did not have the constitutional authority to do so. But
Trump said he did.
Yeah.
But Trump said he did.
Right. That's part of the gaslighting. But also to continue the gaslighting, I just happened to turn over to Fox News to check on what they were saying about this breach of the Capitol. And they said it was going on because Pence didn't do what Trump asked him to do. I mean, while it was going on, it was just more gaslighting from Fox News.
Yeah. George, you want to weigh in on this?
I was just saying that Trump took the great position of let's you and him fight.
It's a Godzilla reference, guys. I love it.
It may take us a moment.
No. I got you. I'm with you.
But anyway,
he also said in his rally that he would march down there with them.
Fox is.
He did it.
And he didn't.
Yeah.
Fox is a very interesting case because Rupert Murdoch, the guy who owns Fox, has been known to throw his weight behind liberals from time to time. What he'll do is he'll put the force of his media empire behind the side that he thinks will do the most good for him.
Right. Who makes him the
and
most
so
money?
It can shift. You notice that. Well, it's who will give him and his media empire a position of advantage in the future. So you'll notice that when it started to look like the Democrats were going to win the presidency, he flipped to Pence. Fox stopped supporting Trump at that moment.
Yeah. I want to say this.
Not completely.
Boudreaux, I'd love to get your opinion on this as well. There are genuinely good people who don't have access to objective information just due to the culture that they're in. Like they go to the gym, all the TVs are on Fox News. They go home, their parents control the TV. They go to work, maybe it's their pastor, and they're having a conversation, and it's very politically motivated and leaning towards one way. The football team has to pray before school goes on. The newspaper is slanted, and there's no access to like what else is outside of this particular mode of thinking. And I think like that is the kind of condition that indoctrinates someone to be more motivated to believing things that Trump might be saying, even if they're demonstrably not true. Do you think that scenario is actual, and what could someone, if that's inside that scenario, do to get out of it?
Yes, I absolutely think that's, and especially Tennessee, Kentucky, I see it a lot. Yeah. That's. I've actually been tempted to try to figure out how to get the gym TV to block the Fox News channel. But a lot. It's brainwashing in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And Brainwashing of My Dad is a documentary that came out a few years ago that's just fantastic. And it for someone my age, it tracks really well with, my dad was driving in a car, listening to talk radio because he drove a lot, and people that were popular on talk radio had to have something to talk about and keep people engaged, and that kind of created I forget the predecessor to Rush Limbaugh, but those are the ones that they came up with language to incite people and get people to keep listening. So it's a steady inundation of alternate facts, I guess.
Yeah. George, go on ahead.
I think that people have a tendency to want to be addicted to the feeling of outrage.
Yes.
So this is a psychological.
That's
This is a
cool.
psychological thing, and that's what you're talking about, Boudreaux. It's and it does predate Rush Limbaugh. The radio people know this. The pastors know this. That if they talk about use outraging language, that people will resonate fast.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think we're more mindful
gonna
of like
work.
the angry voice than the one that's happy. So it's like, for example, if you are a surveyor, like if you're in Disneyland and you're doing all the surveys for Disneyland, and someone says, hey, 10 out of 10, I had a great time. 10 out of 10, I had a great time. And it's just 10 out of 10s for like, the first 30 surveys that you get, and you get one that's like a 2 out of 10. And it was like, April didn't say good morning to me when I stepped on the teacup ride. And I'm like, ooh, we got to focus on this 2 out of 10, guys. We got to make our company bigger. In proportion to everything else, the outrage or like the angry voices or the things that go wrong stand out to us just out of human nature more so than all the 10 out of 10s.
I think, coming from years ago, the idea was that good news does not sell newspapers. Screaming headlines do.
Leads. If it bleeds, it leads.
If it bleeds, it leads. Oh, terrible, terrible, terrible.
If it
things.
bleeds, it
Yeah,
leads.
Yeah.
it's unfortunate, but that's what sticks in your memory.
Yeah, you look at the genres. of
Now,
movies that are popular, right?
on our topic, on our topic of gaslighting and repetition, I remember here 50 years ago, I was in radio, and a time salesperson who was a friend of mine said to me that an advertisement on the air is not effective unless it is repeated twice. So you got to have the message out there 3 times in order for it to gain some traction. And for whatever that's worth, 50 years ago, that's what
it's a
somebody
sales
told me.
pitch. It's a persuasive pitch. You have to make it. You have to make someone desensitized to it through repetition, and that's how it gets through. Because we might have our guard up the first time, but the second time you hear it, the third time you hear it, and maybe from someone else, then it becomes more of like ingrained into, like
Or
your
more
natural
sensitized
thought
to it if
process.
it's an uncommon opinion.
Right. And there's not
And
much of a difference. There's not a difference in parallels between what Trump was doing for the last 4 years with regard to, or the last, maybe 6 months, 4 months since the election was decided, to what a pastor might be doing in a church setting, like you're
Bingo.
a clergy member. And it's like, hey, Jesus walked on water. He died for your sins. You're a sinner, and you need to pray and give your soul to Jesus. You need to confess. You get told that enough times, particularly when you don't have the wherewithal to parse truth from facts as a child. And when your parents are telling you the same thing too, and all the other administrators in your life, your teachers, your principals, the firemen, the police chief, all saying the same things
Right.
too. And
All the way up
wearing
to the
same-
president.
all the way to the president's wearing the same memorabilia. Ooh, there's no hope for some things like that. Like that is a hard hole to climb out of. Dread, it sounded like you wanted to say something. Go on ahead.
I totally agree with you. I was raised Roman Catholic, and that rhetoric is powerful. It's when it's repeated, through catechism and every time you go to church, the mythology becomes a part of you, and it's absolutely one of the most difficult things to overcome in a person's life.
Yeah, and
And that's one of the reasons that atheists should be have a good sense of pride about being able to recognize it for what it was and be able to leave it behind.
Or in George's case, having parents that have enough integrity to not indoctrinate their child when they're born. Just being like, hey, let's let this kid think for himself, because I bet you once he has a ground level of critical thinking, he'll hear someone say, there's a guy that walked in water and be like, what? Forget about it. No one can walk. What are you talking about? I like gefilte fish. That's the only thing I like.
Can't overstress.
I have to say, too, that some gefilte fish is not that palatable, you know. You got to do it right.
No, I can't overstress the importance of picking the right parents.
Yeah,
it's true. Larry, I think this might
My
be,
parents were horrible in other ways, but not this one. Yeah.
Larry, for your case, when 9/11 happened, it was a call to action for you to be outspoken as a critical thinker and as an atheist, and let people know like where you stood, like on this religious question.
Yeah.
And I wonder if the events that happened this week or last week will be a call to action for people to be like, critical thinking does matter. Facts are worth fighting for. And when I'm being told a lie, I'm not going to let that happen anymore. I'm not just going to be quiet and resolved. I'm going to set the culture where this is not acceptable.
I'm sure it will, but it's harder, I think, in that particular position or when it's political, because you can interpret reality in different ways. The people who broke into the Capitol thought that they were doing an act similar to Lexington and Concord. They were taking their country back. They were acting as patriots to return honesty to government, because they've been gaslighted for so long that the elections were fraudulent. They thought they had lost their representation in government, but that simply wasn't the case. They were outvoted. But in the case of religion, you're looking at supernatural and invisible beings and miracles and things that cannot be proven at all to even exist. So it's much harder to question your interpretation from a political standpoint, I think. But I think they should and could.
I definitely think there are writers who had that impression, but I also feel like there are writers who are like, Trump wants me to do this, and I support Trump more than whatever America supports, because America doesn't support what they did. Trump supported what they did. Trump's their guy. Trump's the person on their flag. And when I hear like, you know, these guys are just patriots, they're trying to take back their country, or like try to get better representation because they feel like their country wasn't really representing them. That's what I look at their pictures, and they're carrying the Confederate flag through the Capitol buildings. I'm like, these guys don't really care about America. These guys care about their own intentions, their own privilege, and they don't want to lose any ounce of power that they've institutionally been given unfairly, disproportionately. And when I look back to the summer and I see protests that were peaceful with regard to, hey, the government's not really representing us. The government is doing things that are actually hurting us, and we want to be better represented. That was a Black Lives Matter protest that were going on this summer. And the police response to those protests, even when Trump wanted to go through Lafayette Park and take a photo op with just him holding a Bible upside down, for crying out loud. These people who were protesting were pepper sprayed, shot with rubber bullets, arrested, tasered, zip wrapped, behind their back. Had its cracks. There were people who died. Like, there's people who died all across the nation for just trying to support the fact that their lives matter just as much as everyone else's. And those are people who are fighting for what I believe are American rights. These are people who are like, America represents everybody. This is not a good representation that we're in right now. There's a disproportionate amount of policing based on color or skin. This isn't fair. This is not what we're about. What I see from the Capitol rioters, those terrorists, is like, I don't care if the government says the other guy voted. I want my guy to be in charge, even if it means I have to go in here and change that.
True.
That is definitively anti-American.
But they're still interpreting it as a revolution to get back to that point. Of their power.
It's a revolution of. It's more of a temper tantrum. It's like, hey, that's going to give you cavities. I want it anyway. It's like, I'm having a revolution. It's like, you're having a temper tantrum. Calm down, Timmy. Bujo, do you think that's fair? What you're free to say devil's advocate or whatever.
No, I think it is fair. But the one thing that we have to admit and put some light on is the fact that, at least according to my Facebook news feed, there are people on the right that completely saw that differently. They thought that the Black Lives Matter protests were violent and just as bad as the terrorist attack. And I'm like, why do we have two different news sources? Like, how did you get, because I even talked to people in cities that it was going on. I was like, wow, it looks crazy and dangerous. Like, no, that's not actually really happening. So it's gaslighting, right? Or it's fake news or whatever you want to call it. How is it that I can watch a news feed and get the same impression that you got, Ty? But, some of my friends on the right can watch a news feed and get a totally different perspective. And it's like, I almost can't even fault them, because if that's what you think is true, then maybe you're right. But I don't, where's the truth? Where's the truth? Where's the truth?
It's sort of like, because people disagree doesn't mean that the truth doesn't exist. It could mean that one of the two groups is wrong, or both are wrong. And it's the same thing with science. Just because there's disagreement in science doesn't mean there's no such thing as science, or no such thing as an objective truth. I would like to say that I think context matters just as much as facts. I think it's all part of the same thing. And like, if I said, hey, if you came into my house with an axe, dragged me out unconscious, and put me in the back of your truck, like, we would say that's a bad thing, unless contextually, if you're a fireman and you're trying to save me because my house is burning down. Right. The context of situations matter. And oftentimes violence is used, or not violence, but like unrest is used by the voices of people who have no voice, because it's the only way, like we had said, to get attention from people who would give us no attention whatsoever. And so when I look at the context of unrest that happened in like certain sects of Black Lives Matter, it's like, that's unfortunate. But what's the context of the situation that's causing this, and what spurred this kind of response? And there's a list of names that led to something that led to these kinds of unrest. Though when I look at the unrest that happened in the Capitol, that is not so much reacting to oppression or a suppression of a vote or mistreatment based on color of skin. That's acting on orders given by a chief, the leader in chief of this country, explicitly telling
the madman.
This is something you need to do because this is how I feel about XYZ, and you should feel about that too. Go over there and do this. Cause some havoc. And they were like, we like you more. We'll do it. You're our guy. We'll do it. And these are all the crazies from all around the nation gathering in one place, listening to this one guy, and he had one opportunity to tell them not to behave, decided not to, and it was gone. George, I'll go to you in just 1 second. I just wanted to say one last thing. If we need to go long, I won't cut this conversation short. We can make edits in the future. I'm sure there's a lot of things that people want to say. So sorry if we go a little bit long today. But George, go on ahead.
I want to follow up on what Boudreaux said, because I think it's very, very important. It is maybe the crux of the whole thing, that to follow up on that, what is to be done? How are we going to build on the very fragile gains that we just have achieved? And they are fragile. Yep. We have come very close to becoming a fascist dictatorship.
Absolutely.
And that fascist dictatorship still has a tremendous amount of power. They have achieved especially lot of traction.
In the courts.
And
yep.
Yeah.
Let's be thankful that the Supreme Justices that were elected had enough integrity to be like, no, we're not going to listen to this. This is nonsense.
Indeed.
Could have been completely different.
I mean, we have Republican leaders who have finally broken with their chief, and I'm very grateful for that. So I really feel that the psychology is a science. It's a discipline. Engineering is a discipline, and I just use engineering as an example of things that we don't often think of as disciplines. But I think that there needs to be a retrusting of science, of scientific process, of scientific reasoning, and as Boudreaux hinted at, people are listening. Different people are listening to their own echo chambers.
Yes.
What are we going to do?
So, Dredd,
can we reach, for instance? Let me finish this one thought. Can we, for instance, enlist their pastors? Is that possible?
I don't know. Invoking or seeking the help of one group of deluded people to counter another group of deluded people. I don't know. That seems counterproductive. Yeah, that's my
baby
thought.
Steps, Dredd. Baby steps.
Yeah, like
Baby
right
steps.
now, I'm in both of your camps because I don't want a nation of clergymen running the government. And
No.
Boudreaux, baby steps, it would be an improvement compared to what we got right now. So like even when it was Reverend Warnock as the senator, I was like, yeah, but I really wish he wasn't a clergy guy. Like even Killer Mike, even a lot of like really popular black artists were like, yeah, I don't feel comfortable having a clergyman be in office, but it is better than what we have now. And I think this guy has the wherewithal to say, no, I might have God in my mind, but I'm a servant to the people first. And I'm like, okay, fine. But yeah, in my head, it would be nice to have a secular government, you know? Yeah, Dread Pirate, good point. Good point. George, good point too. Here's the last question.
I want to add to this that I have met an amazing number of Catholic clergy people who have questions in their mind.
Good.
Maybe it's not as hopeless as we think.
Maybe it's not. I think we have a lot of hope to come. I think yesterday, maybe even this morning, I woke up to the news that Trump was banned on Twitter.
Yeah,
And
permanently.
Permanently, because you cause an armed insurrection on the Capitol and you get 12-hour ban on Twitter. It's like, come on, get out of here. What's return in service? Get out of here. Anyway, yeah. So Twitter banned Trump permanently, and then I think what Trump did was he tried to go on an alternative account that he had for campaigning, and then that got banned. And then he was like, well, I'm still going to send out my message. So he went to the POTUS account to say the same thing, and then the POTUS was suspended. So like you can see where his priorities are. Where like Biden's like, I got to set up my cabinet. I got to figure out where COVID needs to be stopped. I got to make sure Justice Department knows what to do. And Trump's like, how do I tweet?
Well, it's all about him. It always has been.
It always has been. What is the nature of free speech? And because you're going to hear this a lot. You're going to hear, Twitter, Google, Facebook, they're part of the communist rule, and the tech giants are silencing the right to free speech for people, particularly anyone that has a conservative point of view. You're going to hear that a lot. I'm already hearing it now. Like I literally just heard that this morning, like blurry-eyed looking at my phone, and I'm already braced for the onslaught of Google, Facebook, tech giant communism. Larry, I'd like to hear from you. Like, do you think there's validity in the argument that blocking Trump from Twitter is an assailment of his free speech?
Well, no, it's no more an assailment on his free speech than it would be on somebody who's yelling fire in a crowded theater. Yeah, you don't do that. We have laws against inciting a crowd, and we have laws against insurrection speech. It's not exempt speech, and he tried to exempt himself, and it just doesn't work that way. He's not above the law as much as he might think he is.
Yep.
What about Google and maybe some others banning Parler, the alt-right social media?
Well, they're using
it off
it
their
for
stores.
Organizational purposes.
You might want to explain what Parler is, just to the audience, real quick.
Yeah. I haven't dared tried looking at it yet, but my understanding is it's kind of an alt-right social media, where they don't have any bans or fact checks or anything like that.
Yeah, it's like 4chan, but for communication gathering. So yeah, they took them off the stores. And I think it's responsible for them to do so. Google is like, hey, you know, if we're willing to go this far, let's make sure that we're being consistent. And I think it sends a good message that, like, if you're using any app to cause harm, particularly for the new administration that we'll have in place, you know, for something that affects every American citizen, you can make the point of, we are a private company, and no one has a right, a constitutional right to the platform. Like, if they want to go to their balconies and scream at the top of their lungs, they can do that. That's their property.
Street corner. Yeah.
Exactly. And there are many available, and you can totally do that. But you can't use our app with our, you know, software, our servers, our hard work to promote your hate.
Yeah. Well, the problem with that is that there are, like Parler, that they set up specifically to handle far right inflammatory speech.
Yeah,
you can say inflammatory or not; it's not inflammatory to them. Yeah. But I mean, you have Facebook, who's trying to be middle of the ground, try to support good moral standards, I guess you could say, or societal standards. But then, because of the Constitution, you can have a company who wants to set up and just flame the entire world. Who knows?
Yep.
But that's the problem with the Constitution. But we have some laws in place about the type of speech that you're allowed to put out. Thank goodness.
Boudreaux?
So maybe let's hit it close to home here. This is my understanding. I've never like, looked into this fully, but several years ago, I heard Zuckerberg, who used to be atheist, maybe found God or something happened where he wasn't so much. There was a point where they were banning atheist groups on Facebook.
Really?
And this is all flimsy memory, and I'm not entirely sure.
He's gaslighting.
Of all the details. No, but it's worth like, okay, so yes, we should cut out these toxic things. It's like, well, what if it starts happening to our team? You know, it's a slippery slope, I think, when we start talking about banning. I'm glad they did it. Sam Harris has been yelling at Jack to do this a long time ago with Trump. But it is. I think we need to proceed very carefully. At least my thought.
So I would also say this. I have the same impression of Facebook when they were starting to ban a bunch of atheist groups along with Reddit. Facebook lends its banning privileges to people. And oftentimes those people, if you were to roll a dice in America, will be a Christian person.
Sure.
And those people with an ounce of power will use every ounce they have. And I say it's like you give someone a hammer, they think the whole world's a nail. And so even when you're on Reddit and you're posting in a philosophy group about like, hey, this is a critical thinking path towards walking away from like hardcore dogmas, such as like these religious thinking principles, and you can be like more open-minded and stuff like that. I've had a member of my post blocked and taken off of even Reddit and Facebook. And then other days, if I post like at 2:00 in the morning when those Christians are asleep and the European mods are awake, it goes through and I get like 7,000 likes. Okay. And I'm like, isn't that a really unfortunate thing that it's always just down to a subjective nature? Larry, go for it.
I was just going to say 5 minutes, so be careful, or you don't want to run over.
We have 10 minutes, but yeah, you're right. We are going to wrap up pretty soon. So
long break, I forgot. Go ahead, George.
Yeah, go ahead, George.
I want to follow up on something that Larry brought up a couple of minutes ago. I can't remember what it was.
No, it's okay. Hey,
was it, Larry?
maybe this will.
Oh yeah. You can't. I remember. You can't cry fire in a crowded theater. You can't incite violence. I think this is the cutoff point.
Yeah.
And Zuckerberg, I believe, fell for Trump's Kool-Aid.
Oh no!
You know, he drank Trump's Kool-Aid. He was enamored of something. You know, he was a little bit too reticent to take any position that would oppose the fascist dictator. There was some honey that Trump put out that Zuckerberg fell for.
I think
it took an event of
I think he falls for the same thing that everyone that doesn't speak up for like Black Lives Matter or for anti-authoritarian rule fall into, where it's if I'm quiet, it will go away, or if I'm complicit, I'm therefore anti-fighting against this threat. And it's not so much being complicit to racism, which will get rid of racism. It's being anti-racist that will get rid of racism. It's being anti-authoritarian, anti-fascist that gets you to not have fascists rule this country. And you have to be vocal and you have to set the tone. If you're a politician, it's your duty to make sure that the American principles of democracy stand. But if you're not in politics, if you're not in a political office, if you're just like me, like a pedestrian on the street, it's your duty to set the tone of what's acceptable in this country and what's not acceptable in this country. And you do that through conversations, by asking people questions, by making your voice heard. And when issues stand up like this, like when the president literally incites violence against his own party, against the next heads of states 4 orders down, that's something that's worth talking about and saying, hey, this is not good. The people who represent me in political office need to make sure that they agree with me on this thing. And the ones who still support the president even after today, even after they were huddled away by Secret Service and then brought back to the joint session and still gave their written speech they had beforehand, where they were like, and this vote was a fraud and there's a lot of irregularities we got to look into. Those are the people you need, whose names we got to remember and make sure we never put back into office again. And I'm hoping that they will be held accountable, because it's our duty to hold them accountable. And that is something that we have to do. It's not being quiet and letting it hope go away because we're all billionaires. It's fighting against it. That's the way how we get rid of problems.
And I think that we have to start changing the language and start referring to ourselves as
what?
As what?
You're
the
breaking
patriots.
Yeah, he froze.
We're the patriotic people.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Yeah, I said we're the patriots.
I want to say one last thing, last topic. Free speech is not free, and it doesn't mean that you get to say whatever you want to say, however you want to say it.
Well,
without pushback.
It doesn't mean you're going to speak without consequences,
Right.
but it also doesn't mean you can say whatever you want whenever you want to say it. Like, we have rules in place of guidelines of like, you can't incite harm against people and you can't incite panic. So
And lie in court.
Or lie in court. Like, we have rules, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like, free speech doesn't just mean like, oh, I can't say something, that's a violation. It's like, no, you look it up what it means. Dread Pirate, what do you got to say?
it's like the saying, your right to swing your fist is when it comes ends where it hits my face, right?
Right.
It ends where my nose begins. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
That's a good point. All right. So
Yes.
I really enjoy talking to you guys. Thank you for this. It's weird because of COVID. It's weird to have conversations with people where you can just speak freely, because I'm in Tennessee right now and we live in like a pressure boiler, but I feel spoiled. I literally said spoiled when I've since subscribed to Biden's presidential channel, and he's going through the members of cabinet that he's bringing in, and he's making it a point to say things that I've been thinking about the nature of how police interacted with the protesters, letting them in, taking selfies with them, but yet chasing black officers up the Capitol floors, just one floor higher. And the nature of the terminology uses against them. Like, they're not just protesters, they're insurrectionists. They're
Right.
bad
It's
people.
important to
Mobs.
use those words.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And I am so looking forward to 2 weeks from now, hoping everyone's good. And I also like the fact that, George, you brought this up. I think there's going to be positive consequences. I think Secret Service is going to be hyper aware of the fact that this can happen in this country. And we will not let something this embarrassing happen to us again, where you just let 100,000 people walk into the Capitol building and urinate on the floors and like steal letters. Like, we can't let that happen. We
And
need to
computers. They
thorough-
stole computers too.
And I think it's also a good demonstration of the fact that there is a double standard in this country.
Right.
And anyone who says there isn't, we can
Right.
now have clear example that it's not the case, and that this is something that as Americans, everyone, we all need to work on together. And so thank you, crazy people from around the country who want to show us how crazy we are, because it's no longer you now officially made it white people's problem too.
No longer.
That's right.
So thank you very much for that. We appreciate it.
It's not academic anymore.
Yeah. So let's hope so. And thank you, Trump, for making America great again. We really appreciate that. Boudreaux, is there anything you'd like to plug? We have your music video in this mid half of the show.
Oh, sweet. Yeah. Well, I got an original coming soon. And how about I tie together what you just said with a Star Wars reference? Because
go for it.
You know, for the in the prequels, they made a really big deal about how young Anakin Skywalker, spoiler alert, becomes Darth Vader, was going to bring balance to the Force, and everyone's like, yes, this is a good thing. This is good. And as it turned out, it did balance the Force by wiping out a bunch of Jedi. Maybe the same thing's true with Make America Great Again. Yes, Make America Great Again. Everyone thinks it's a bad thing for democracy and all that, but maybe you're right, Ty. Maybe we needed this bad to happen so that we go good again. So there we go.
I hope
just to get the pendulum to swing the other way, right?
Right.
Yeah. Someone's so incompetent that through all of it, he just Mr. Beamed himself and made everything great with zero intentions whatsoever. Dredd, how can we find your stuff on YouTube?
Yeah, so I stream Sunday mornings at 8 a.m. PST, the Pacific Standard Time, and my channel is Mind Pirate, MINDPYRATE. Look forward to seeing you.
And I'm Let's Chat. George, I know you don't have anything, because if I were asking, you'd be like, I don't know.
No, I do.
Oh, he does.
Do.
Quick, give us something real quick.
I do.
Give us something.
Yes. Okay, real quick. America is great already, and the greatness of America is in the diversity of our people.
Absolutely. Yeah, and we have a lot to pull from here.
Very good.
Larry, I had a quick question. I don't know what atheism is, and I want to know what it's all about. What can I do?
Well, you can buy my book. I happen to have a book on that. It's called Atheism. What's it all about? It's available on Amazon.
What's it all about?
My content, my other content is on digitalfreethought.com. You can go there to find a blog, radio show archives, atheist songs, and many articles on the subject. If you have any questions about the show, you can send them to AskAnAtheist@KnoxvilleAtheists.org, and we'll answer them. That's my book. Thanks, Dredd. And if you're having trouble with scrupulosity, that is, leaving religious beliefs behind, I recommend going to recoveringfromreligion.org. They'll help you any way they can. If you're watching this on YouTube, be sure to like and subscribe. And this has been a Digital Freethought Radio Hour. We're on every week, locally on the radio at 7 o'clock p.m. on Wednesdays. Remember, everybody is going to somebody else's hell. The time to worry about it is when they prove that heavens and hells and souls are real. Until then, don't sweat it. Enjoy your life, and we'll see you next week at 7 o'clock on Wednesdays. This is Digital Freethought Radio Hour. Say bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
See ya. Bye.